I'm sorry the House of Commons security is so effective that it's actually kept you out all this time. Can we begin, Gaynor, with you? Might you just introduce yourself, say who you are, and then we'll go down the list, and then Neil will have the first question.
So I'm Gaynor. I'm a self-employed mobile hairdresser. I'm a single parent, and I've got 3 children. Robbie, who's 9, and then twins at 3.
Great, good on you. Right.
I'm Vicky. I'm a 34-year-old single parent of 2 girls. I've got a 4-year-old and a little one that's 2 on Saturday.
Great, we'll have a good time. You can.
I'm Lucy. I'm from Manchester. I'm a single parent to a 9-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And I'm a self-employed nail technician.
Great.
Hi, I'm Tito Marley. I'm from right here in London, and I'm mum to a bright, brilliant, boisterous, beautiful 2-year-old boy. I'm also a former BBC journalist, now turned mum on a mission to make childcare work. Under Universal Credit, I'm also the author of the Change.org petition, which last count had 95,700 and counting signatures.
Right, whereabouts in London?
East Finchley.
Oh, sorry about that, Neil. I thought it would be better.
Thank you so much for coming in. Sorry about the issues with coming through security, but can you tell us briefly, how does your experience of claiming support for childcare under Universal Credit differ from what you were used to before?
Dana, shall we start with you?
So, I can't really remember much of how it was before, because I didn't have to have the childcare. But how it worked, be it with the working tax credit and things, it was much easier. You just used to have to tell them your earnings every year with being self-employed, and it was actually easier. And I think with it not being stressful, that's why I can't really remember. Whereas, like now, it's just so stressful, what you've got to do.
Can you tell us, so before, when you're on tax credits, there was a yearly assessment of your income, but did that affect your childcare entitlement or not?
I didn't have childcare then.
I see,
I didn't need the childcare element back then, so that's why with the childcare element, I don't know how different it is.
So when you actually first applied for childcare, what surprised you or horrified you?
With this universal credit at the minute, it was the fact that you've got to fork out a month, 4 week of nursery fees first, before actually getting your 85% back. But then you don't always get your 85% back. So. And
did you get it in 4 weeks, Gaynor?
No.
How long did it before you got that upfront payment back?
Well, when I first actually switched to universal credit, I was 8 weeks without money, so I had to rely on parents. And then obviously when I put the children into nursery, I think it was about 6 weeks before I had to fork 6 weeks of nursery fees out before then I got contributed. And this is month in, month out. You never get it on time. You never ever get your childcare on time.
Good.
And how long have you been doing it now, going through the system?
So I've been on universal credit for nearly 2 years.
And the payments haven't got more better?
No.
All right. Vicky?
I've been on universal credit for 7 months. I went back to work after having 2 young children in end of March, beginning of April. And similar to Gaynor, I had to pay upfront for the childcare costs. At the time, my eldest was also in childcare, so it was £1,300 that I had to pay upfront before I even went back to work, before I earned anything, before they'd had any childcare.
And how long did it take them to repay you that 1,000 plus?
It was just over 5 weeks.
Thank you. Lucy?
I've been on universal credit for around 2 years as well. I left my job in the police because of childcare issues. It's very difficult to get childcare around shifts, so decided to go self-employed. So I've had 2 periods where I've struggled with the initial upfront cost of nursery. So one was initially when I'd had the break from the police, and I knew a lot less then than I did now. So the money that I needed for that time was borrowed from parents, and that was a good month before I got that back in order to pay them back. And then the other issue I faced was summertime, when children are off school. Obviously your childcare increases then. I wasn't aware of the flexible support fund at that time either. Someone advised me to ask for a budgeting advance, but that was rejected on the basis.
Who was the someone? Can you remember? Was it just like a friend or someone in the job centre?
I'm on quite a few help sites for Universal Credit.
Sort of blogs and websites and things.
Yeah, sort of advice and, you know, is this right? Because fortunately there's not a lot of continuity. So people are getting told one thing and someone else is getting told something else. So they are really helpful. It was on these sites that I was made aware of the flexible support fund, which I now try and promote because it seems like the biggest secret in the job centre. But so the second time I actually, when the budgeting advance was refused, I called again the next day and told
Why did
them.
they tell you they refused? Sorry.
They said that childcare, even though an unexpected bill is part of the criteria, I know they're quite strict with the criteria, and I thought it'd be okay because it was a larger bill that I normally wouldn't have to pay. But I was told that childcare wasn't something that they would give a budget in advance for, which I know on the old budgeting loan.
But Lucy, the
do.
lack of flexible childcare to match your job in the police resulted you resigning a job where you were getting a good pension.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
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 Well, she has got fabulous now, so.
Gertie?
Yeah, my situation's quite similar to Lucy's actually, in that initially I retrained also to be a nail tech. But when I actually enrolled into college, childcare was the biggest issue. In fact, they wouldn't even allow me to enrol on the course unless I had stipulation that I was able to afford the childcare. I wasn't told by anybody that I could have any help. So at £1,800 a month, it wasn't sustainable. So whilst I did my nail course privately, the full beauty course I had to withdraw. My child had to come out of nursery, and then he was at home until March. Well, from March until September. Under Universal Credit, and for me to be working simply doesn't work. And I found this out in July. So we tried again. My child turned 2 in August. I applied for a job. It was my dream job. I got the job deservingly. Unfortunately,
What was it?
It was for UK Communications Officer for UK programmes.
Right.
But that's about as much as I'm going to say.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, no, it was my dream job. It was working.
And this is with the BBC still?
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I'd kind of taken another turn into more sort of external comms. With the journalism, I couldn't do it. I'm in entertainment news. It doesn't work with a 2-year-old as a single mum.
Yeah.
But on a salary of 32,000, we wouldn't be entitled to any universal credit, any housing benefit or any help. So having paid our rent, council tax and £1,500 per month full-time childcare, plus the £500 deposit on top, we'd be left with £60 for the entire month for all our bills. That's effectively £2 a day. So unfortunately I wasn't able to take the job because it just didn't work. Work didn't pay for us.
And ask me, you mean 2 or 3 of you?
It's just myself and my son. I'm a single mom.
So I'm just thinking, on £2 a day, you'd have to spend quite a bit of that day shopping. To get a meal, 3 meals out £2 a day, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
On
and
top of
nappies.
everything else.
Nappies, petrol, travel,
Yes, I know.
utilities, and we were at the food bank last Christmas. That's how bad things got for us. We were at the food bank last Christmas because it got that bad. So it's not that I don't want to work, it's just that work doesn't pay in this situation.
Neil? Any further questions? Heidi?
It's Rosie.
Oh, Rosie. Go in, very Rosie.
Given all of your experience, which is probably vastly different to the people that are the architects of this system, to be honest, because you're directly affected by it, are there any changes that the government could make to childcare support to make it work better for you? Would you all kind of answer that? Is that right?
So, yeah, really, it would be, helping out more with the upfront costs. Yeah. It's the actual, you've got to fork out the monthly cost first. And like with me in just my situation, my children have just changed nursery. So when they change nursery, you've got to pay a week up front. So with twins, that's 2 weeks plus a week each. So that's 4 weeks. So where am I going to find? And it's £188 per week. Where do I find that money from? Now, so really something needs to be done, because like I say, it's more, we give the evidence. They know that our children are in nursery. They've had evidence from the nursery itself. All of us, we've all said
they've
that.
They've got their ages.
Pardon?
They've got their ages.
Yes, they've got their ages.
Precisely what's going to happen.
So it's like, why do we have to keep telling them? And then, that they are in nursery. We're not lying that they're in nursery. So that upfront cost would help. So if they helped pay the 85% that they say they would, and I mean, I've not even been getting 85% help with mine anyway, and I can't understand why, and I've still not got to the bottom of that. Some months I do get 85%, other months I don't get 85%. I don't know why.
Your work coach, sorry, can't explain to you.
My work coach, I've just switched work coaches now. My first work coach did not have a clue. It hasn't helped me along the way. I've not known about all this flexibility, whatever. I've not known about advance payment. I've not known anything. It's not helped me.
One of your many... Do you think they knew and didn't tell you, or do you think they just didn't know themselves?
I don't think this person in particular knew himself. Now, this other one that I've got, he actually works alongside with self-employment more. I think it was the fact that he didn't really know about self-employment as well. But I don't think self-employment works on universal credit either. I think it's harder. I think it's made a lot harder.
But when Lucy said she's on a number of websites to find out the information, I mean, what a setup this is.
This is how I found out
through
speaking
us,
to you.
Therefore to our constituents, as simplifying everything. We were into a new dawn when all these terrible complications of 6 benefits rolled into one. It was going to make such a difference. And we're seeing Gainer's given us one. Vicky, how would you?
Following on from Gainer's point about the work coach and things like that, the simplification of it, the continuity. You can speak to one person, they'll tell you one thing. You can ask the same question an hour later and somebody will tell you something completely different.
You didn't always speak to the same work coach?
I met a work coach when I first applied for Universal Credit. I've met her once. Since then I've never had to go back to the job centre. I do everything online. So if I speak to somebody, I can either submit something on my online account, somebody will get back to me, normally a few days, up to 5 days or so, a few weeks sometimes. I can ring up and speak to one person, they'll tell me one thing, they'll pass me on to somebody else, they'll tell me something different. It's just this constant merry-go-round. There's no continuity in what you speak. I can completely understand how it's supposed to be. I can see what's trying to be achieved, but it's as if across the board people need to be singing from the same hymn sheet, and they're not.
You see?
So following on from that, continuity, you don't always see the same work coach. I'm on live system, not full system, so I have to ring up all the time, and every time I've got these issues, every month I'm ringing at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, and every single time I'm ringing, I'm speaking to a different person. I'm going over myself, and you just get passed from pillar to post. So I think continuity is a massive issue. Also, the practicality of it is it's so complex in the way that it works with assessment periods. I think it needs to be, as Gaynor was saying, sometimes she's not sure if she's getting those 85% back. You can't work it out. It's if your assessment period, like mine, runs from the 21st of one month to the 20th of the next month. You don't pay your childcare like that. You pay your childcare up front on the 1st of the month. So you don't even know, it's in dribs and drabs, and I think that's a massive issue, because you can't, you've got a receipt of the bill from start to finish, what your childcare is. You're getting paid totally differently, and even I sometimes don't know how they're working that out. So I think if they made that a lot simpler, you know, for example, you could have sort of, you reported this much childcare on this date, and this date you will be getting back this much, 85% is this much, you know, so people could understand it. That would be a really good start as well.
Following on from what everyone said, I think just simplifying it, making it easily accessible and understandable, and also with regards to the upfront costs, as a single mum, I don't want to be taking out another loan. I don't want to be in any more debt. I don't understand why it's a loan and it's not a bursary or some sort of incentive, or similarly to how they do tax-free childcare. Why is it not matched with that? Why do we have to sort of go through all these hurdles? Also, I think a real discussion has to happen between childcare providers, between the Work and Pensions Committee and the Department of Work and Pensions, and businesses. So, for example, the job that I applied for, they're so pro-parent. You know, they have childcare vouchers, they've got flexible working, yet they couldn't make it work. So that then makes me think, well, what else are other employers doing? When I've spoken to childcare providers, a lot of them don't even do the fee to 15 hours because it's not worth their while. They've actually told me it costs them more to have my child as a 2-year-old for those 15 hours. So the first nursery he went to, they don't do it. They'll take the 30 hours when he's 3 and 4, but they won't take him when he's 2. Hence why we had to swap. And then that childcare provider, because she was in the same situation and she founded her nursery, because as a mum, she couldn't find childcare provision, so she started it some 30 odd years ago, and that's why she takes children like mine, so they're able to have the same access, the same level. And he loves it. He runs in there every single morning. It's like the highlight of his day. And before that, we used to have to just watch our friends and his counterparts walking past our windows, on the way to nursery with my child stuck inside.
But the risk has been taken up by the provider, hasn't it? Not by the government.
Yeah, essentially. So they're paying
for it. It's just committed, makes it a vocation.
Yeah. But then not every provider. I know the first one, it ran very much like a business. When we got our show around, it really was very corporate. With the first one, they were selling to us, they didn't even look at my son, I don't think. And then the second one was very much about him, which is why he's there. And you can tell that they care, and you can tell that it's a labour of love. But not many people even know. Quite a few people in my area didn't know. I'd become an advocate for them. I said, let me do your PR, because I've managed to get 3 other children in there as well.
Very good. All right?
Yeah, thank
Heidi?
you.
So we've touched on it quite a bit already, and in our previous session we heard a lot about it also, this issue of paying up front. And some of you already said, I think you said you had to borrow some money from parents, and I think probably for you, it's meant you not taking that job, the fact that you would have to pay up front. So I'm not sure, unless there's anything particular extra you want to say. I think we all get the flaws in this paying up front. So talk to me about, if any of you have got any ideas as to what would be a better system. Should we start with Lucy? You look poised.
Come on, suck it to us.
I think that, like, the flexible support fund is supposed to be there to help with this, but it's not, and I don't understand. Well, I do actually. Every job centre has a budget, doesn't it? And I think they're really protective over that budget. So I know that unless you know about it and you approach them, they're not forthcoming with that.
See, I can't help but feel that the flexible support fund is just an elastoplast. It's a sticky plaster.
Yeah,
that if you know about it might help you out, but it doesn't fix the design flaw of you needing to find this money up front.
See, it doesn't make sense, because universal credit pays in arrears. No childcare provider will do that. So
if you hadn't had the
You both mentioned you'd borrowed from parents, I think. If your parents hadn't been able to support you for that, what would you have done then?
Well, this is it, basically. It's my parents that have had to, more than anything, provide and pay for my children to go to nursery so that I can still go to work. Like I say, I've had my business for 15 years, I don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
You know, but my parents shouldn't have to pay for my children to lead a normal life, for me to just lead a normal life. But I would actually be better not working. Now, I did an entitlement thing not long ago, and I'm only £9.37 a week better off working. That is it.
With the help of your parents?
No, this is what when I did a calculation.
No, but you got into that position where you could be £10.37 better off because your parents helped.
Because my parents helped me, yeah. My parents helped me in every way, you know. They help provide my children with clothes, you know. I mean, I do still, but when things are hard, you know, things are really hard. You've got to watch your money from month to month, you know.
How many hours are you working?
So at the minute it fluctuates. So it goes from 16 to 30.
And for all of that is to work out less than a tenner.
Yeah, it just depends what work I get in. You know, some weeks I might get 30 hours, other weeks. But it's hard for me again because I can only do the school run at the school hours, because I've still got my little boy to pick up. But even though your children are in nursery, so I've got to take my children to nursery for 8 o'clock, so then that I can do the school run as well and start work for 9. But then I've got to finish work for 3, pick obviously the little boy up, and then, but you've still got to pay nursery for a full day from 7 till 6 o'clock in the evening, regardless of what time you pick them up. So even though I'm not making the money, you know, that way by putting them hours in, because I can't then, because I've got sort of tea and things out, you know, it's a hectic life, you've still got to pay for a full day. And likewise with the 30 hours, mine have just been granted the 30 hours. Now, that's only for term time, but I still need to work, you know, in the holidays as well. So I'm a lucky one where this nursery where mine go to, they do it so it's over the year, so that my children can still go in nursery in the holidays. Otherwise, it'd be a hell of a lot more money again.
Vicky, when you were making the choice of the nursery, what was the period between agreeing with the nursery that your children would go there and actual turning up for their first day? What was the length of time?
I think overall it was probably maybe a month to 6 weeks between the initial phone call to see if they had a place, and then they have a few sort of settling in days. You have a look around a few times, see if you like it, things like that, and then discuss fees.
So if we
and
were
things.
thinking of a reform, that the nurseries should tell the government you've got a place from a certain date, they'd get maybe 6 or 4 weeks notice that they should actually pay the nursery.
Absolutely. Those 4 weeks up front would just be a huge help. With regards to nursery and universal credit and the way it works as well, Gaina was saying that her nursery that helps with universal credit because they even it out over the course of the year. So effectively what you're paying every month's nursery fees is the same regardless of whether it's term time or not. It evens it out. So my youngest now, it's £510 a month, every month on the same date, and that makes it a lot easier. Some nurseries have the flexibility whereby you can pay that way, or you can do it on term time depending on your job. Teachers, for example, would probably want to do it the other way.
So the nurseries have introduced the flexibility
only some of them though.
rather than the scheme itself.
So that itself means that they know what my fees are, what they're going to be, and it keeps the universal credit payment around about the same amount instead of it fluctuating wildly from, you know, £500 difference one month to the next.
Lucy?
Yeah, so because my childminder is self-employed, she's on universal credit, so kind of understands those difficulties. So she's universal credit friendly as well. So I moved my daughter out of a nursery that wasn't really, so that I could send her to the childminder, and she was able to spread those 3 hours and the payments out. And also because, like Gaynor said, if you want to put your child in nursery, you've got to pay for those 10, 12 hours, regardless of if they only need to be there from 9 until 3. So that's a massive, you know, a huge extra cost. So my childminder worked a little bit different. She was a bit more flexible, where I could just use her for those 6 hours. So that brought my costs down a little bit.
With myself, we got his place within 48 hours of my phone call. So I'd phoned up, found out if they took the funding, took my child there, got everything done, signed, 48 hours, he had his place. That was the end of July, beginning of August. He started nursery on the 10th of September. So there would have been absolutely plenty of time for them to have said, yes, he's got his place. Again, I have the same issue that my current funding is only term time. And I'm just lucky that they did the 15 hours, 3 hours a day. So, for example, it's half term today. But my fairy godmothers from Save the Children have paid for my little one to be in nursery today, otherwise I couldn't be here.
So, yeah, I'm still, I want to come up with some ideas really of how we could make this better. And one idea that we floated through the previous session was whether, and tell me if you think it's a good, bad or indifferent idea, whether almost you were taken out of it and the DWP just paid childcare directly.
Yeah, that's fine. It'd take that initial barrier straight away. It would remove.
Because the money's kind of coming through you for no reason, really, isn't it?
It doesn't. We could just bypass sorts.
We spend a lot of time when we've been speaking among ourselves. We spend a lot of time submitting evidence for childcare. Yeah. So taking pictures of invoices, bank statements, highlighting what we've paid and when, and then submitting them either to the job centre, to an online account. And remembering to do them on the right date at the right time. If we didn't have to do that, it's a massive stress. I mean, I work 33 to 36 hours a week normally over 3 days. So I've got long hours on those 3 days, and then I've got 2 children the rest of the time. I'm running a house, I'm trying to work a full-time job. As well as all of that, I'm having to remember and write on my calendar, I need to do this on this date, I need to submit these childcare costs. I have to remember to ring the nursery to send me the invoice, otherwise it's not going to get paid on this time. So absolutely, that would be a huge
it would make a big difference.
It would, yeah.
Presumably, you know, I'm not a mum, but I would imagine, and listening to all your stories, when you find the right place, you want to keep your children there. It's not like you're going to chop and change. Yeah. So it would be almost like you've got a contract with Childminder and XYZ, and you want that regular relationship and the payments. It's not like you're going to change tomorrow and want to go to a different place. Slightly, sort of a bit off subject, but I find it staggering, Gaynor, this calculation, £9.32, whatever. Again, not mum, so I don't know, but I would imagine there's a part of all of you that knows, okay, it's going to be tough for a few years. It's not going to be all milk and ambrosia, and making ends meet is going to be a bit tricky whilst the children grow up and you can get back to work. But how should it work? What should the benefit system work like to enable you to cope with these years and then I'm sure you all, when you come through it, want to be back out there full time, paying your way. How could it be more supportive to help you through this period?
I think that it really has to look at individual cases opposed to this kind of blanket thing that they've got going on. Because they actually don't take into consideration, everyone talks about money and all that you'll be losing is benefits, but they don't talk about the human cost. They don't talk about the time that I'm now going to be out of the workplace, and how I'm going to re-enter with a massive gap in my 40s. We already know about the equality of pay and everything else, so it's almost like a woman's human rights issue as well as being a mother, as well as it being a benefit thing, and it's just very short-sighted. So if you were to help us in some kind of way to bridge that gap for a period of 4 years by the time that our children are in full-time education, it's either that or you can sponsor me and my child, the state can, for the rest of our lives, because that's exactly how it would work, rather than investing in us for 4 years so that I can be in a position where he can go to nursery, I can go to work, or we'd be in a situation whereby I'd be stuck at home and they'll be paying for his nursery, they'll be paying for this, they'll be paying for our rent, they'll be paying for everything. I just feel that it's very short-sighted.
Yeah. I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but I've recently just become subject to the minimum income flaw, which basically I've had to make the decision of what to continue with my self-employment. That 12 months start-up period where I'm exempt from the MIF is not long enough.
We've got views on that, Lucy.
If you get bored one evening, have a Google on our website, you'll see we've been looking at that.
Vicky?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to sit at home when we didn't plan to be single parents. You know, we shouldn't be penalised for that. That's not what we're here for. We want to be able to go to work and to provide for our own families. And at the minute, it seems as if there's a roadblock everywhere we turn. All we want to do is just make it more accessible.
Okay,
Totally agree with each and every one of you. Just to make things not, like I say, as stressful either. Since I've been on this, I've changed as a person. You know, I'm not my normal happy self either, which, you know, it's quite sad really to think that how it can affect people. And like I said, there's more people out there that are worse off than me. I've got a good family and I've got very, very, you know, good friends, good support out there as well. So
nice, huge story, isn't it? Gaynor, thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I just wondered if any of you had had an experience of the nursery charging you extra money if you're late with your payments. Is that something that's happened to any of you?
The first nursery that my two children were at, that I took them out of, I called and spoke to the owner of the nursery directly, who was less than helpful, and she added an extra fee because I was 2 days late, because the universal credit payment came in 2 days late. And I think she added an extra £50 onto that, which is more than a
Sorry,
day's
can you
charge.
say the sum again, Vicky?
It was £50 that she added on for a late payment.
For 2 days,
For being 2 days late, yeah. If it was a day late, she would have still added the £50 on.
Yeah.
So that's why I took my children out of that nursery. I've never been late on any other payment. They'd been in there for quite some time. I was paying it regularly. I could have potentially asked my parents, my grandfather, to lend me that money to pay it on time. I shouldn't have seen why I should have had to do that for 2 days.
And can I just ask, I mean, apart from the rights and wrongs of the nursery charging that kind of late payment fee, which I guess is a separate issue, there's no way you can get that money back. I mean, presumably you were late because Universal Credit hadn't paid you, but no one said, hey, this is how you get the money back.
No.
Is that the...
Yeah, in my case, when we had to pay privately, my child was suspended from nursery. So I was paying, I think, half or 3/4 of it, and his dad was supposed to pay the other. Didn't quite happen. I got whacked with an £800 bill, was told that my child was suspended from nursery, paid the £800, and effectively that would have been the money for him to continue on, for me to be able to do my course. Couldn't do that, so we sat at home. And that's how it was treated.
Any other comments?
I think I've been fortunate in that respect that my childminder, although it's in the contract that they would add fees on if add costs on if my fees were late. Thankfully, I think my childminder, my childcare provider was quite understanding. So I don't think I've ever
She was on
paid.
Universal Credit
Yeah,
herself,
so I think she got a bit of
she knew
sympathy.
what the rest
Yeah,
of
so
it
I'm very
was.
fortunate in that respect, really, that I didn't incur any late charges.
Well, thank you.
Can I just ask one really speedy?
All right.
I might have missed it. Sorry if I did. I'm just finding it a bit much all to take in, so my brain keeps zoning out a bit. Have we? Did you ask whether the job centre paid you back for those late fees?
Oh no.
Oh no, there's no question, is there? Yes.
No, just wanted to check.
No question of that.
Okay.
Well, thank you for persevering to get in, to give us evidence. It was stunning, but it's pretty depressing, isn't it? As it is at the moment. So I think we'll move to a quick report, and you've been hugely helpful in shaping what we're going to say and what reforms we're going to ask for. Thank you for your journeys, and thank you for being such a wonderful witnesses, each of you, how strong the work ethic is, despite every obstacle it appears being put in your way, actually going out to work, instead of actually saying, here's a helping hand. to actually make sure you're real successes of what you're doing, because we view you as that. Thank you very much.
The most panel we've ever had as well. By a long way.
I'm sorry we couldn't. I'm sorry we couldn't match you. Right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're just going to pause when you leave to decide what we're going to say.